Hello and welcome, everybody. Welcome to the No Name Music Cast. My name's Tim, and this is
Joy.
And here at the very top of the show, I'm going to break with tradition and I'm going to give you a podcast recommendation that is not us. I highly recommend you listen to our podcast and maybe even go back to old episodes if you haven't heard them before. But I'm recommending a podcast I listened to today. In fact, I listened to it twice because it was so good.
Okay. Well, what's the recommend, Tim?
It's a podcast called One Song. And what they do is they go into a deep dive on one song.
We should have did that. Topics might have been easier.
Yeah.
But it does sound cool.
Yeah. And they've done various songs, but the episode I listened to today, they're doing Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Of course.
And they've got the multi-tracks. Now, I tried to download the multi-tracks because I wanted to play with them as well, and I haven't been able to find them yet, but I'm sure a little bit more digging around the internet, I can find them. And that
Just
is
give me time.
Yeah, that is all the stems of Thriller, all the vocal takes, everything. And they break this song down like stem by stem by stem, and it is so fascinating. There's bits in it where there's 14 Michael Jackson parts for one vocal.
Wow. That's so crazy to think about. Could you imagine how many parts, for those who listened to the last episode of ABBA, think about how many parts would be in one ABBA song with the way they build.
Yeah, it's really cool when you hear how like the production genius of Quincy Jones created this by knowing this part and that part and this part and that part. And
So interesting.
It was written by Rod Temperton, but Quincy Jones is the producer that put it all together. The other takeaway from this song, which I didn't know,
Okay.
you know, at the end of Thriller, in the video where they're doing the zombie dance, it goes bum 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 bum, and that bum bum goes bum bum. It's like it's like almost like a frog sound.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That weird kind of noise.
Yeah, it's a frog preset on a children's Casio keyboard.
I've heard of things very similar to that, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird to think about how they just come up with that. And like, who was the one who was like, well, let's try it like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Apparently Michael Jackson had this children's keyboard in the studio and was playing about with it. And they're like, hang on, what was that? What was that? Burp, burp.
Do that again.
Burp, burp. Oh, that might work. And then there we are.
I mean, we've talked about people using like cars backfiring and stuff before, so it's not that different.
There we are. But anyhow, that's a podcast recommendation here at the very top of the show.
All right. Well, I have something very weird before we get in tonight. It's Tim's topic, but I wanted to bring up something that I found very strange on the internet. And it is don't trust everything you see on the internet, right, Tim? We all realize this. But I feel like with streaming being so popular right now, like online short videos, like reels and things like that, sometimes people just assume the person behind the screen is an expert or things of that nature. Well, This is music related. So on the app that sounds like the clock, there's a video that's going around of Mariah Carey. And this video of Mariah Carey is apparently her backing track went out and she just starts singing live. She sounds wonderful. And for some reason, somebody shared it and it just blew up on the app. Well, I was like, oh my gosh, good for Mariah. Like, we all know she's had problems with her voice. She sounds wonderful. You could tell she had to. It's funny, though, because, she looked very mad. And we were sitting there like, people in the comments were like, somebody got fired that day. But she did so good singing. And it was like 7 a.m. It was a morning show. So I started Googling it, being like, oh, when did that happen? It happened in 2013. Why it just popped up and is now viral again, I don't know. But none of the things indicate that it happened 10 years, 11 years ago. And so it goes to show you, just because it's viral on TikTok doesn't mean it happened yesterday.
No, absolutely. I mean, because they often, how could you date it? I mean, I suppose you could look at the footage and see that maybe, I don't know. It's hard to say.
I mean, it's possible, but I was just like, I find it funny because in some way I understand, it's just one person happened to share it and then other people thought it was cool. So they started resharing it, blah, blah, blah. Right. But it's also like, sometimes it's like, did anybody look into it? I feel like all the comments were indicating, wow, she sounds great now. And it's like, but this wasn't now.
No, it was some time ago, as you say.
So anyway, so that is my piece of advice on top of Tim's podcast advice. I didn't know this was going to be an advice column. And this is not anything too big, but there was someone who passed away recently. He passed away today. His name is Jack Jones, and he wrote the Love Boat song. You know, the famous Love Boat
Yeah, yeah,
song
yeah.
at the beginning of the show. He died today at 86. And
Well,
apparently he did get 2 Grammys, which was kind of interesting to me. I've never really heard much about him, but he did pass away. I mean, they didn't really say, but he was 86 and he had cancer. So
well, rock in peace, sir. You left behind a great legacy.
also, Jack Jones is a great name.
Yeah, that's a fabulous name.
I mean, I don't think that was his born name, if I'm going to be honest with you. Maybe it was, but that is giving really good rock star vibes. So appreciate it.
In the world of rock and roll, you sometimes have to change your name.
Yes, this is true. I love there's like one of my favorite Family Guy skits is the one where the grandfather goes, Alicia Keys, her last name can't be Keys. And she happens to be a piano player. That's got to be fake, right? And then he's like, Johnny Guitar? What if my name was Johnny Guitar? You see how weird that sounds? And then he goes, wait, I want my name to be Johnny Guitar. It's one of my favorite little bits because I mean, I had never really thought about the Alicia Keys thing till he said it. And then I was like, oh, yeah, it probably isn't her real name.
I don't know. Let's have...
It isn't. I Googled it. But it would have been, it was just funny. Like he comes to this realization. Let me see what it was. Hold on. Her last name was originally Cook. Alicia is her first name, but her name is Alicia Cook.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, I just thought it was funny when he was like, wait, no, I want my name to be Johnny Guitar. Tim could be Tim Guitar. All right. Well, let's get into whatever your topic is.
Okay, well, I've got a couple of music news items
Oh,
first.
yeah, I didn't ask you if you had any, Tim. My bad. All right, continue.
Okay, so it was just an interview that happened this week. So as you know, we lost David Crosby of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. It was in 2023. A very sad, iconic singer, musician, songwriter from that sort of generation.
Yes.
Well, Graham Nash, who was part of Crosby, Stills and Nash and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, gave an interview recently, and he asked whether he would ever perform with the remaining members of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. And he said it's never going to happen. He said him and Stephen Stills and Neil Young will probably never, ever play again. He said there's no heart there. He said David was the center of it all. And he said it's never going to happen. Now, in later years, him and David Crosby fell out. I was lucky to see Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Didn't they like not like each other at some point?
Yeah, I was lucky to see Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young in Roanoke, and I saw them in that. And not long after that, them two fell out, and it was a huge falling out. And I heard an NPR interview with David Crosby, and they asked him about Graham Nash, and he said, I'm just not comfortable with what he did, and if you want to find out what he did, you'll have to ask him. It's like I don't know what was going on there.
At least he really wasn't being too at least he was quiet about it. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But it seems to me that Graham Nash is at peace now with David Crosby. And, he said he's only remembering the good times. He said, we had our disagreements, but I'm choosing to only remember the good times. But yeah, looks like we're never going to see the Stills, Nash and Young thing is never going to happen.
Well, and it is one of those bands that has a very big cult-like following. So there's a lot of people who would enjoy that. Interesting. But I do appreciate when someone does it, even if someone upset you and you're fighting with them. I like when they just keep quiet about it and don't go into a lot of detail. I think it always ends up working out better, especially if the person passes away, then you don't look as much like a jerk.
Yeah, he says, I really miss him. I miss him more every day because life is choices, and I only choose to remember the good times that David and I had, the good music we made together. And when I try to think about all the bad thing that happens, I don't want to do that. I made the choice to only remember the good stuff. That's what he said.
Fair enough. All right. Did you have any other music news, Tim?
Yeah, I have some other music news. So I don't know anything about this. However, when I was looking for music news before we recorded today, I saw this headline. And for me, is this a random word generator?
Okay.
Charlie XCX and Troy Sivan conclude sweat tour.
Well, I know who Charlie XCX is, but I don't know who Troy Sivan is.
That's just like making words up. I have no idea what any of that means.
Well, Charlie XCX recently got popular again because of Brat Summer, which Tim's like, I don't know what that means. He has an album that says it's green and it says the word brat on it, and they were calling it Brat Summer, and it's just like a cool summer, like cool people or whatever. I don't know how it works, but that's what they were referencing a lot of the Gen Z that's voting for a certain candidate in the election, which I won't get into detail, we're calling her a brat, and like boomers didn't get it, but it was a reference to the album. So there you go. There's a lot of information Tim didn't get either, but it doesn't
I have
matter.
no idea what any of that means.
So I do know who Charlie SES is. I don't know what a sweat tour is, or I'm guessing that's the name of the tour. What was the other person you said?
Oh,
Trav.
Troy Sivian?
No idea.
No idea.
They lost me on that, but I do know who Charlie XCX is, and I actually like a few of their songs, but I digress.
Yeah, they're all new words to me that I've never seen before.
Tim's like, did AI make up this headline? Like, what is happening? All right. What else you got?
Okay, so I'm going to get into the topic.
Okay.
So, as we all know, I've had quite the music journey over the last couple of years, and I've decided to embrace this world of Spotify. And as you know, once I'm in, I'm all in. It's full encompassing. I'm still listening to my CDs downstairs, but outside of that, it's all Spotify all the time. And I'm in the process of putting some of my old digital collection and putting those albums into Spotify, as well as adding other stuff that I want and putting it all in there. So what I thought I would do is I would give you what's been recently added to the Spotify. And I thought I can mention the album.
Okay.
I can pick out a track and then we can talk a little bit. And then we can go off topic and talk about gas heaters or something. And then it'll be fantastic.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
Okay. So as I look through my most recent additions to the Spotify, the one that's near the top here, this would be Captain and Tennille, their album Love Will Keep Us Together. And I'm going to pick out the track Love Will Keep Us Together.
Of course. I mean, wasn't this a theme for a show or something at one point, Tim, or something in the 70s?
I think
or maybe it's just been used in a lot of movies.
I mean, I think it's been used all over the place.
Because, I mean, you always get that love will keep that famous line, but I feel like it's either in a TV show or maybe I've just heard it a lot and I associate it with TV because it's been used in every movie ever.
I mean, it came out in 1975. So, I mean, certainly within my lifetime and yours, it's been out there in the world.
That is true. And my parents are big into their 70s music. So maybe I just heard it a lot going up. It's a good chart. It's a good track. But to be fair, I mean, it's like it's kind of yacht rocky. Like, yeah, I know yacht rock was mostly associated with the 80s, but that's what I think of when I think of this song. Or maybe it's just because it reminds me of a boat.
Yeah, I mean, because he's a captain and he wears a captain's hat on the cover.
Maybe that's why I associate it as a yacht rock song, but it might not be. But it would definitely be playing on my CVS playlist.
Oh, absolutely. You could walk into any Walgreens right now and hear this if you needed to.
So good choice. Good choice. Is there a reason it was recently added, or did you just think of that album and want to put it on there?
No, it was. I think I got up to the letter C in transferring all of my iTunes stuff into Spotify. So,
what is it? Hold on. No Name Music Cast brought to you today by the letter C.
By the letter C.
I'm spaced, but I wanted to make a Sesame Street reference. But yeah, okay. All right. Well, what's next?
Okay, so this one comes from the 1001 album challenge.
Which Tim loves, by the way, everybody.
Well, yes, I love doing it. And every day it's a fresh album to listen to. Me.
And you're learning.
Megan and my boss all do it together. It's fabulous. But today's pick was terrible. Objectively terrible.
He needed a palate cleanser after said album.
I mean,
we don't have to diss the album, but I'm just making fun of Tim because he wrote me like, why?
Yeah, I mean, I don't like rap music, but not only was this rap music, which is a genre of music I don't enjoy, it was poor. I mean, like the rhymes, if you will. It's like, I've got the moon and it's in June and I hold a spoon. And it's like you could hear him say the first line and you knew how the next one was going to end.
I want somebody to just isolate that bit, like use it for different things and Tim rapping. But they rhyme things with things, basically, is what Tim said.
But it wasn't clever. Everything was so predictable to listen to.
There you go, guys. But anyway, what was the actual one you were going to say?
Well, this one is Janet Jackson, and we've gone through Control before, but this is Rhythm Nation 1814. Now, before I get into the song that I've picked, do you
Okay.
know why it's called Rhythm Nation 1814?
I mean, I know why it's called Rhythm Nature, but I don't know if I know the 1814 reference.
18 is the eight R is the 18th letter of the alphabet, and
Oh.
N is the 14th letter of the alphabet. Rhythm Nation 1814.
Here I thought there was going to be some long spread out, like logical reason behind it, but okay, that makes sense. All right, what's the song, Tim?
Well, I think I'm going to go with the song Miss You Much.
Which is one of the ones you seem to like a lot from Janet, right? I think we've talked about it a few times.
Yeah, I like the music of Janet Jackson. As I said before in a previous episode, I loved Control growing up. I had that on cassette, on CD, on album,
do
and I even
too.
had the 12-inch remix album as well. And when Rhythm Nation 1814 came out, I was very excited. Now, this has some very good songs, but it has like interludes between each of the songs. So the whole thing plays as like one big concept, if you will. But that said, the songs themselves, they do stand alone. I mean, you've got the song Rhythm Nation, of course, Miss You Much, which I just mentioned, and then you've got the song Black Cat. And Black Cat is actually a really good rock song.
One thing is, Janet was a lot more diverse than I think people give her credit for. If you listen to her full albums, I'm a big fan. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
So people she did a lot. But I just remember you've talked about this song before. It's not, I mean, it's pretty good. And I like the lyrics to this one are kind of cool because it kind of has like a few different like cool little breakdowns in it. But it's because it's designed for dancing. So it makes sense.
Sure. I mean, it's still within the genre which is known as New Jack Swing.
Is it really, or did you just make that up?
No, because that's how Control was described, New Jack Swing.
Really?
And
I mean, I get it, but it's a weird way to say it.
yeah, and the Rhythm Nation is still within that same genre. And this album again was produced by Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, so it's the same production team that brought us Control. So it still has that sort of signature sound across it.
I mean, nothing kind of beats the intro to Rhythm Nation than like the actual song Rhythm Nation. It's perfect.
Oh, it's
Yeah. Well, sorry, go ahead, Tim. I was just gonna let you say what you were gonna say.
yeah, it's just it just has a good sound about it. These tracks have good feel.
Well, the other thing is, I think you make a really good point. Is there are some albums that need to be listened to from beginning to end, and this is a lot of Janet Jackson's albums are like that because they're more art pieces in some ways than they are albums.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really delve much into Janet really after Rhythm Nation. I mean, she had some other singles and stuff which were cool, but my relationship with Janet is Control and Rhythm Nation, really.
I mean, that's fair. I do like Love Will Never Do. That's a pretty good one towards the end. And I mean, there's a few other songs. Escapade is my all-time favorite Janet Jackson song, though, which is on this album.
Yeah, Escapade's a great track.
That is the one that when it comes on, I'm like, everyone shut up. I have to listen to it. I can't turn it off. I love that song. And that one, while it does play on the radio, it's not as popular. But like when she's like, let me take you on an escapade, that like goes through my head 37 times a day. And it's funny because when I was little, I remember hearing this song and I don't think I would have ever made, the song's called Escapade and then she's offering to take you on an escapade. And I feel like only as an adult did I make that correlation.
Yeah. Don't you think it's a little bit like When I Think of You? It has a very similar vibe to it.
It does. It's very, very similar. But for some reason, that one is probably my favorite of the whole album. I don't know.
Well, there we are. You are, Joy, are allowed to like what you like.
And I'm going to have Escapade in my head. So, all right. What's next, sir?
Well, I'm going to ask this question before we get into it. Have you heard of the band Marillion?
No, for me, it sounded like when you said Charlie, when I said Charlie XCX earlier. Is that English? Don't know what you're talking about.
Well, I won't go into the Marillion album, which contains the song Kaylee, because we will have no common ground on that whatsoever.
All right. Sounds good if somebody out there likes that. Apparently, Tim does too.
All right, well, let's go with this one. So I have been collecting on compact disc the British issue of Now That's What I Call Music.
Of course, I knew that's where that was going.
Yeah,
when you
and
said British
I
issue.
purchased number 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I'm waiting to buy number 5. They're incredibly expensive for a double CD set because they were sort of 2019, 2020, they reissued them all. And it must have been a limited run. And it's been really hard to find them. And I've been buying them from Discogs. And Discogs is like an eBay type thing, but for physical music.
Yeah.
And it's fair to say they've come from all over the place. So now that's why I call music the first one came from the USA. Number two came from England. Number three came from Australia. Number four came from Israel. And number five, which I haven't received yet, is going to come from Chile.
How long is it taking you to get them through customs?
They seem to come. I mean, like the Australia one took 2 weeks, and the UK one took about the same. It doesn't. They don't take that long.
Here's a question for you, Tim. Have you ever had customs confiscate anything?
Not confiscate. I've had customs charges levied.
So we one time had something confiscated. So I don't know, for our people who are in the outside of the US, and Tim would know more about this. I don't know how exactly it works, but like if me and Tim order something, let's say it's coming from China, it's got to come through US customs and they're going to inspect it. Well, Charlie bought like a little card that goes in, I think it was my Switch. And I don't know if it was, think like a micro SD, but I don't think that's what it was. That's just the example I'm giving. I can't remember exactly what it was. Well, apparently it was like counterfeit. It wasn't actually made by or contraband. It wasn't made by Nintendo.
Right.
It was fake. And so they took it at the thing. But the funny part was, so they confiscated it because it was like it was a fake Nintendo thing. But the funny part was it was at customs for like 3 weeks for them to determine this, right, Tim? And the customs people, though, because I guess legally they couldn't keep it, they still sent us something. They sent us the cardboard box and the little plastic insert that the thing was in without it. And I thought that was the funniest thing. I guess they don't really have to keep that part. They don't, you know what I mean? It's not necessary, but I'm like, oh, yeah, thank you for the plastic. That's the only thing I think I've ever known to be held at customs that we've ordered.
I've ordered guitars from the US when I lived in the UK, and then you have to pay a customs charge when it's delivered.
Is that on all things from the US or?
It depends whether customs do it or not. So I bought, when I lived in England, I bought a few guitars that were shipped from the US.
Yeah.
And sometimes they come in and you never have to pay anything. And then sometimes there's a customs levy when it comes in. And there's no way that you can figure that out.
What's the levy supposed to cover?
Well, it's taxes. It's import duty and taxes.
But why would it be it doesn't matter. I digress. This is what we threw all that tea in the Boston Harbor. He goes, well, I don't get it. Like, I'm American. We're not very tax pro. But like, why wouldn't it be every time then? Why? Maybe it's a certain way or?
Well, it depends. I mean, the thing is, you have to remember, there's only so many people who can do this stuff.
Okay.
And of course, someone manually has to get the package, get the documentation, take it out, check it, decide on what category, which tariff category it goes in.
So it really is some of what the person thinks. Okay.
Yeah, then put the levy on it, and then repackage it and then send it through to the next.
Some people put it as home goods when it's really this or vice versa. Okay.
And what you find sometimes is that there's just not the people to do it, and that stuff just slips through and you don't have to pay.
Very weird to me. I don't think, does America ever have a levy on anything?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, every country has customs charges and taxes and levies because the principle being is that, if I buy a US made guitar in the US,
yeah,
it's a U.S. business. It's benefiting the United
local.
States. Yeah, and then I'm paying sales tax on that. But if I'm buying something that's come from abroad, all of the stuff where it's made and all that stuff like that is the U.S. doesn't see any of that. So to compensate a U.S. seller, there is a customs duty when it comes in to say, hey, this was made abroad, but the government is going to make money off this and yada, yada, yada.
Is it usually the seller that's paying that, though? Because I don't feel like it's the person buying it.
No,
like,
it's the
if I
person.
get something on eBay, it's like the seller, right?
No, if I bought, I don't know, like my CD from Chile,
we went
for example.
so off course, but anyway, how does it work?
Yeah, so my CD from Chile, I purchased it off eBay.
Yeah.
I did not pay any, as far as I know, I didn't pay any taxes on that because it was an external purchase.
Okay.
But when it gets shipped to me, it will come through in the regular mail. Now, all of the mail organizations of the world have reciprocal agreements. So Chile doesn't pay the United States any money or vice versa, because the idea being is that we handle theirs and they handle ours and it balances itself out.
It all works out. Okay.
Yeah. And that's the theory. And then there's been some talk about putting levies on that because some like Chinese stuff coming in and not much is going out. Anyhow,
anyway, I get it.
All right.
Yeah.
So it's going to come from Chile. It's going to come into the country. It's going to hit the point of entry, which will be some kind of customs type
Some port
thing.
somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And if it's most of the time, most of these sellers mark it as a gift. If it's a low value item, they mark it as a gift. And if it's marked as a gift, typically you don't have to pay any import duty.
Like whenever you go to get your car changed over to somebody else you sold it to and you mark it as a gift so they don't have to pay the extra tax. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying do that, guys, but people may do that. I wouldn't do that, Tim. I would never.
But if they mark it as merchandise, sometimes someone in customs will pick it up. And then if it's the regular mail that's sending it to you, they won't even deliver it to you. They'll put a card on your door saying that there's a customs charge waiting, and then you have to go to the post office and pay the fee.
I ordered so many things that this has never happened.
Because there is a whole thing with, because most of the stuff you probably buy comes from China.
Well, yeah, it's all coming from China.
And there's this whole Trans-Pacific Agreement thing. That was brought in by Bill Clinton.
The North Atlantic Free Trade Agreement.
Yeah, whatever that thing is.
NAFTA.
Yeah. So all of that.
So that's what okay.
Yeah, so that's why you can buy stuff from Shein and things like that.
And that's why people blame that for a lot of stuff. Okay, got it.
Because it comes in because you don't have to pay customs duties on it.
Okay. Now I see. Okay. I mean, I knew what the North Atlantic Free Trade Agreement was, but I didn't associate it with this until Tim made that correlation. All right. We spent a lot of time discussing U.S. Customs. What was, I think there was this track you were going to go for on your Now That's What I Call Music.
So anyway, I've recently added Now That's What I Call Music 3 to my compact disc collection, and I also added it to the Spotify. And I'm going to go, this has got a lot of good tracks on here, but I'm going to go with one track on here. And that would be the Weather Girls and It's Raining Men.
I mean, and I always think of the music video with the umbrellas. Like, it's got such an iconic music video that goes with it. And once again, a song that's been used in 1,000 movies since the beginning of time.
Absolutely. And did you know it was written by Paul Schaefer?
I think we talked about it on one of the podcasts, but I didn't know until we discussed it before.
Yeah, little Paul Schaefer from I mean, he's a musical genius, but I mean, the band leader of David Letterman's band, little short, bald-headed man, wrote "It's Raining Men."
Well, according to all sources, he was just giving you the down low, Tim.
Exactly.
Come on. But also, I wonder if you Googled the net worth of that song. It's no wonder the Weather Girls never really did much more after, because it's probably worth a lot of money. There is some stuff there, I know, but
yeah, I think the Weather Girls was just a vocal group who sang Paul Schaefer's song.
Yeah, that's exactly what they were. But didn't one of them went on to do a lot of backing vocals on some other things?
I think so. I mean, they were very enigmatic characters, and they had great voices, but I mean,
I didn't know they were much more than that. Yeah.
Yeah, they didn't become Sister Sledge or anything like that. That was pretty much a one-shot deal for the Weather Girls. But
I wonder, do you think they were put together by the production company?
Well, given the fact the song's called It's Raining Men and the band is called the Weather Girls, you probably think that's maybe just a one-shot deal.
You're right. I didn't. It's like the Johnny guitar earlier. I didn't think about it until you said it. And then you're like, it was a show to put together to make a disco hit in the 60s, 70s. I don't know. I guess maybe the 80s. I don't know. When did
it's 80s? It's 80s.
Yeah. After I said that, I was like, probably not the 60s. But okay, yeah, you're right. I don't think it wasn't lost on me that the Weather Girls were probably put together for It's Raining Men. But that one lady's name is Martha Wash. That's her name. She went in and she did quite a few different songs. And part of the reason that she says that they didn't get she didn't do a lot of solo stuff or like make it as a solo artist was sadly because of her size. She ended up doing a lot of backgrounds in different songs.
Well, that's a shame. I mean, they both had great, powerful voices.
I mean, they're wonderful. And I want to say one of them like sings up in the I don't know if this is the exact song. Don't come for me, internet. But there's one of those like pump a jam type songs in the early 90s. Those like EDM type things. And she sings the backups in it. I can't remember which one. Like one of the funky groups or something like that.
Technotronic.
That's the word I'm looking for. Yes, that. You guys know that genre of music that I'm trying to describe. Yeah, I said everything but what it was.
90s dance pop is something I'm very familiar with.
Some good house music, okay?
Housey music.
Call it.
Yeah.
That's what the people call it when you're like in Germany or something, so I've heard it. Anyway. But yeah, I'm pretty sure she sang backup on a lot of those. And she did talk a lot about that. Sadly, she just didn't get picked for a lot of leading stuff.
Well, that is a darn shame.
All right. Well, what is next, Tim?
Okay, so the next one is the Doobie Brothers from 1973 from the album The Captain and Me. And I'm going to pick out the track off here, China Grove.
You know what's interesting? Of course, my brain said talk about the China Grove. Whoa. But, but what I was thinking is we haven't really talked about the Doobie Brothers that much on the podcast. They haven't come up for a band that was relatively popular in the 80s.
No, I mean, this is from 73. I mean, it was
Okay,
it was
well, I guess it was the
70s.
70s.
It was 70s into 80s. I mean, Michael McDonald was the singer of the Doobie Brothers for a long time. So,
Well,
I mean,
and he had
that's
some solo music too.
I mean, that's where we got the beautiful voice that is Michael McDonald.
Well, my favorite though, and one thing that annoys me about Jimmy Fallon is when they say he can sing, and then they have him always either do Michael McDonald or Keith Richards. Those are the only. Oh, Mick Jagger. That's
Mick
what
Jagger,
it is. Mick
yeah.
Jagger. I'm like, how can you say he can sing? He can do like two good personas, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean,
Drives me insane.
good luck to Jimmy Fallon. He's got the Tonight Show, but I don't think he's a great interviewer. And like you say, he's probably a better stand-up comedian than anything.
I was going to say, he's more of a comedian. I think that got kind of pushed into the role. I mean, he's not bad, but it was just funny that like they try to push like these personas. And maybe it's just because music and nighttime television go so hand in hand, right? We've had so many great musicians, like Jimmy Kimmel's a great musician. And I know you don't like him, but though James Corden can sing, he sings wonderfully, and he's actually a great musician and things like that. So I feel like they kind of push the singing thing on to the night show hosts a little bit, maybe. Or like what's his face who plays the guitar and things like that. So maybe that's where it comes from. But like, why can't he just be? Why do they always have to sing too, Tim, or like do the music skits?
I don't know, but I will tell you that the greatest late night host of all time, and I'm not even talking about Johnny Carson, I'm talking about David Letterman.
I knew that was coming.
He does not sing.
That's what I say, but he doesn't try to like pretend to sing either.
No, I know absolutely not. Dave is Dave.
Yeah, like he sticks with the comedy, and I almost feel like that's probably what Jimmy Fallon should do. Anyway, that's my theory on Jimmy Fallon is that he did it once and then they just kept the bit running for too long.
Well, he was on the cast of Saturday Night Live for years, and I mean,
He was.
so I mean, he's in that famous More Cowbell sketch.
Mm-hmm. You're right. Oh my gosh. So speaking of things Tim doesn't know in the modern day world, but are recent. So there is a, and I'm going to make Tim watch it, guys. I'm going to make him watch an SNL video from recent when we get off of here. We might get a reaction video. But there's Sabrina Carpenter, which Tim does not know, but me and Ian talked about, we thought it was written by AI. Mm-hmm. She has this song that's called Espresso. And so they did this sketch that's called Domingo. The guy's name is Domingo, and it's hilarious. And it is literally all over that app that sounds like the clock again. And I would be curious to see how Tim reacts to a modern day SNL skit. Because, it has a different feel than the old school ones. But it was funny. This was pretty funny.
Well, as you know, I've seen SNL twice in its entirety. And I've seen the stage and set with my own eyes twice. And I really don't want to break that.
I mean, that is fair, but so you can close your eyes when you watch the video, Tim. You can just listen.
Well, I've seen clips. I'm talking about seeing an entire episode of SNL.
I'm joking, guys. I just bet. But yeah, it was actually pretty funny. I'd be curious to see how Tim reacts because I like SNL, but they haven't had a really good, funny sketch in a long time. That's the way I feel. So I was excited about this one. Anyway, if those out there who have Domingo stuck in their head because of that SNL sketch, just know joy is with you. Tim doesn't know if I'm speaking English anymore, but I digress.
I have no idea.
All right. What's next? Okay,
so the next one is a band called Roachford, headed up by the man Andrew Roachford.
Yep.
And the album is called Roachford. Is that someone you're familiar with?
Only because you talked about them once on this podcast, but outside of that, no.
Are you familiar with the song Cuddly Toy?
No. Should I be? What is Cuddly? Is it about toys?
It's a great song.
Well, I guess I'm going to have to watch that when we get off the podcast.
Have you ever seen the Alan Partridge film?
No, you had me watch the show, didn't you?
Yeah, they made a motion picture of Alan Partridge.
Of course
Alan
they
Partridge,
did.
Alpha Papa. And there's a whole scene where he's driving along in his Kia with Cuddly Toy and is singing along with it. It's absolutely fantastic. But I mean, this was a big song before the Alan Partridge film. It just surprises me. That is like classic 80s power pop.
I don't think it made it into America unless it's a song that I don't know I know. Does that make sense, Tim? Like I've heard it. is he singing about a cuddly toy?
Yeah, he goes, "Oh, you gotta feel for me, babe, for me, baby. Give me some." Bam, bam, do, 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 do.
I'm just letting Tim keep going. I have no idea. Nothing.
I
Now I
don't
don't
know.
know if you're speaking English.
I don't know that just surprises me.
It's one of those other ones that we've talked about. It's weird to know, like, me and Tim generally have very similar music tastes, but every once in a while I'll come up with something or he'll come up with the other one, and it just didn't make it across the pond both ways.
Yeah, it's very odd. I said, if nothing else, our 200 and something episodes that we've done, it's like solidifying this US UK divide when it comes to popular music.
And it's so weird because you just assume everybody knows what you know. You know what I mean, Tim?
Yeah.
But then it is kind of funny when there are certain songs that, like, that was what was popular in both places. You're like, how did that get through, but not this one? That one was so much better. All right. Well, I digress.
Okay, well, let's move on to the next one. This is one you will definitely know.
Okay.
This is from The Jacksons. This is the album Triumph. And I'm going to pick out the song Can You Feel It?
Can you feel it? Can you feel it? Yeah, very familiar with this song. I mean, this was iconic. I love this song. It's got that great opening that builds, which we talked about. Good music always builds. It's a really good song.
It is. And do you know what's funny? So the version that's on the Spotify is an expanded edition.
Okay.
Typically, I don't always add the expanded editions, but this one is the only one that's available. And they have a remix version of Can You Feel It? And it's called Jackson's X MLK Remix. And it's the song Can You Feel It? And it has a speech by President Barack Obama. And then it has speeches by Martin Luther King Jr. mixed in it. I was listening to it and I was like, that's Barack Obama. I was like, what?
And his voice is so distinct. You're like,
yeah,
wait.
100%. I mean, it's kind of cool how they did it. But the funny thing is, this was done way after the fact.
Yeah, obviously.
Probably after we lost Michael and everything. So someone has gone back to the multi-tracks and remixed this and then put speeches in it. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting. That's the song they chose to do it for as well, because it's not like one of their really what I would associate with like a political message or a message songs. Like that song strictly to me just makes me think they're going to break out Dancing Machine any minute. You know what I mean?
Maybe it's got inspiring lyrics and I've never looked.
I haven't either. Let's give it a goog. Me and Tim are Googling it, you guys. Can you feel it? Lyrics. Here we go. I mean, it does say the whole world's coming together now.
I don't know. If you look around, the whole world's coming together now. Can you feel it? And all the colors of the world should be that. Loving each other wholeheartedly. Yes, it's right. Take my message to your brother and tell him twice. Spread the word and teach the man who's hating his brother when hate won't do. Because we're all the same. The blood inside me is inside of you. Now tell me. Oh, I didn't realize it had that kind of message about it.
Didn't either. And then there's another start that's like every healthy smile is hunger and strike to another child. I really just took this at surface value as a dancing song.
Yeah,
Wow.
no, this has a strong message, and I never knew that.
I just learned that too. That's why I was surprised you were saying it was this song, because I was like, this is the one, but all right. Okay.
Well, that maybe explains why it has an inspirational speech by President Barack Obama and quotes from Martin Luther King Jr. in it.
Well, there you go. We learned something new I've heard this song probably 1,000 times at least, Tim.
Oh, today.
Easily. Like easily. I couldn't even, and I never would have thought that. All right. Well, good on you, Tito and Greg and Nathan, whoever else was in there.
Nathan, right. The famous Jackson brother Nathan, the one that's never spoken about.
All right. Well, yeah, something like that. We'll just go with that. All right. Never live that down. That was a joke, everybody. All right, what's next, Tim?
Okay, so this one is from 1989. This is from our friends in Aerosmith and from the album Pump, which is now I'm incredibly familiar with. I had this on a cassette tape that someone recorded me at school. Actually, I remember my school friend Gavin Williams recorded it on a cassette tape for me. It had Faith No More on one side and Aerosmith Pump on the other. And I've listened to it and listened to it and listened to it. I know this thing absolutely inside out.
Okay.
And I'm going to take the last track on here, What It Takes, which is a ballad.
I mean, I love a good Aerosmith ballad. I feel like they do them justice.
Oh, yeah, and often a lot of these tracks, like Diane Warren co-writes them, to
Of
get to
course.
to put that kind of real cinematic spin on them.
You know what's so interesting though? Steven Tyler is so theatrical in the way he sings, right? So that's why the ballads are always great. But I've never, it makes me wonder, do you know if he's ever done backup on anybody else's tracks? Because I feel like it'd be so distinct and I wonder if I've like ignored that. Kind of like when we were talking about Mick Jagger doing them. I wonder if he's done backup for any vocals. Do you know of any?
I don't know of any, but it wouldn't surprise me if he has.
Now I'm going to be listening for that because his voice is so distinct, like Mick Jagger's. I feel like I should know that, but I really don't know.
There we are. Do you know the other interesting thing is I'm looking, so when you have the Spotify, you can see the play counts. Now, on this album is Love in an Elevator, which is a huge, huge hit.
Of course.
It has 9 million plays on Spotify. What It Takes, which is a ballad, I think it was a single as well.
It was in America for sure.
Yeah, has 11 million plays.
Well, What It Takes is one that I will say, from an American standpoint, I don't know about in the UK, but you could hear that one on the radio a lot. Whereas Love in an Elevator, yes, you could hear it in the elevator, but maybe you could hear it on the elevator, guys. You can hear it on the elevator. You can hear it on the radio, but I don't know that you hear it as often because maybe the context. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Love in an Elevator was a huge hit in the UK, and I mean, they played it on Kids TV and otherwise.
And you guys had that board of people who would nix things and stuff, so it must not have been that bad.
Yeah, the Mary Whitehouse cleanup campaign.
That's like the worst job ever is to be part of that. Like, I couldn't think of a worse, like, if someone told me they were a part of that, I'd be like, never mind, bye. Like the person who picks what songs can and can't go on the radio because of topics, like, I would be terrible. And like, I can imagine them letting somebody in and then be like, oh, cousin Bob over here, yeah, his can get through, but Love in an Elevator, next. I don't know. It sounds like the worst job ever.
Absolutely. And as we've said before, the opening spiel on Love in an Elevator, in the video, is a very quote unquote sexy woman model type in the lift. Yeah. And she says, oh, good morning, Mr. Tyler, going down. Mm-hmm. And then the video of the making of Pump, the lady that does it is just a very normal looking lady. She looks like a school teacher. But of course, she's a voice actor. So she has the voice for that.
That's so funny. Makeup and the right outfit can change a lot of people.
There we go.
That's all I can say about that. Now, I will say Love in an Elevator is one of my favorites. Like, and it does rank up there. It's probably, if not my favorite Aerosmith song. I can't take what I still call the Armageddon song just to annoy Charlie. If I hear that again, it makes my eye twitch.
Yeah, that got incredibly overplayed. I like the songs from Permanent Vacation as well, the one that's before Pump.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I generally like almost most songs from Aerosmith. They're pretty good, but that one particular is one that Charlie loves and likes to yell when it comes on. So I might just have PTSD. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it sounds like something he would like because it's incredibly over dramatic.
Yeah, that and Meatloaf and Celine Dion on repeat. Welcome to my life. Anyway, what's next?
Okay, so the next one is from 1966. This is Buffalo Springfield, and I'm picking out the track For What It's Worth.
Which was written like as a protest song.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I mean, this is what Brandy talked about, I think, when she did her episode with us. Brandy, aka my twin sister, she loves this song and loves kind of like the Buffalo Springfield kind of sound. Mm-hmm. I do a little bit, but not as much as she does. So I mean, I heard it a million times now. It's very 70s putting flowers in guns type situation.
Sure.
But is there a reason you picked this one, or is it just the one that you knew everybody would know?
It's just a track that I thought everybody would know. I actually listened to the whole thing after I put it into the library, and it is a great album. It's a real sort of it's like a soundbite of the day, if you will. But certainly, you again looking on the Spotify, 677 million listens.
Do you think his name's really Buffalo Springfield?
No, because it's a band. It's just a band name.
Oh, but I thought that's what what's the main guy's name then?
It's not Buffalo Springfield.
I thought it was his name. Well, we're going on the Goog machine, everybody. I need to find out. Buffalo Springfield.
There we are. Find out for us, Joyce. This will be breaking news from 66.
I thought he was like Bruce Springfield's cousin. I realized that's not the same guy, so I was just making a joke. All right. Oh yeah, because Neil Young's in it. Joy. Okay, I'm never gonna leave that down. Tim's like, go Google it because you're gonna feel like an idiot here in a minute. Yeah, you're right. I do. Okay. And then it's also one of those bands that's been through multiple members. So give me a break,
Sure,
everybody.
absolutely.
But literally, Neil Young, Tim. Neil Young was the guy that I was
Neil Young
associating.
has been in every band of the 60s that was protest music. Neil Young was legally obliged to be a part of that band.
Oh, and Stephen Stills was always in. That was also in there too.
Yeah,
So you
of
go back to
course.
your
Yeah,
Crosby, Stills, and Nash reference.
they're all in there. They're protesting the Vietnam War, et cetera, et cetera.
And then the Birds were also one of those. They
Oh,
all go full
absolutely.
circle. And that Jim Messina.
Absolutely.
God. In my defense, I don't know why, but I was like, what's his name? Buffalo. You're like, no, that's the band. I'm like, then who's the guy? All right, Brady's going to yell at me for that one. That one's coming for sure. All right, what's next, Tim? Let's move along before I say anything else stupid.
Okay, so this is from 1986. This is Steve Winwood, because Steve Winwood, was in the Spencer Davis group, and he had other songs that he did, but he had like an 80s pop career renaissance. And he had this album out in 86, and the track that I'm picking out is Higher Love.
Which is a favorite. But I have some biases. So I love Bring Me a Higher Love, which, that's like I love the song. I love it. But I do like when Whitney Houston sings it better.
Oh, I don't think I've heard Whitney Houston sing that.
Whitney Houston has a version where they make kind of like an EDM house mashup thing, and she's singing the Bring Me a High. It's her.
Oh, okay.
And I love it. It's wonderful. I mean, I love the song in general, but her version with the EDM kind of like making it a dance track, bar none, the best. Ranks up there.
Interesting.
I found it. I don't even know how I found it one time. I was just on the YouTubes and was looking up Power Love, and I happened to see like where somebody. Because if you don't know this about me, Tim knows this about me. I love mashups. Like, and I don't know why I don't use my Audacity software and build mashups myself. I'm too lazy. But I love the concepts of building on the chords and doing like mashups is one of my favorite things. And I went through a time period where I was just looking at them all up on YouTube, and I fell into this one.
There we are. Well, yeah, it's
Now I got it in my head.
interesting stuff out there. Now, here's a question for you, Joy. When you listen to your music, do you predominantly listen to the Spotify or do you listen to YouTube? What's your service of choice?
It depends. I have very specific guidelines around when I'm listening. If I'm working and I just like want some background music and I want to like, you know what I mean, like play something while I'm working, it's Spotify because I have like playlists built and I can just like let them play. But if I'm trying to think of a specific song or track down something specifically, I tend to go to YouTube. Like, let's say I'm like, oh yeah, what was that Queen song me and Tim were talking about? I tend to go to YouTube. But if I'm just listening to general music, I go to the Spotify.
Okay, interesting. Well, I'm probably 90% Spotify. It's very rare I'll pull something up on YouTube. I only pull stuff up on YouTube if I know I can't get it on the Spotify and I need to have it for whatever reason. But as you know, I'm still embracing my CDs. But I said this Spotify thing is growing. And you know what? This was disappointing, but not disappointing.
Okay.
So I have a Yamaha receiver in my front room. And that runs the sound for the TV. It's got my record player in it, my CD player's plugged into it, all
We
that
have
kind of
very
stuff.
similar setup in my living room
Yeah.
for surround sound.
And whenever I put Spotify into it normally, I would connect it via Bluetooth. And the sound quality was never as good as my CD player.
Okay.
And then if I put Spotify on the TV, which we have the app on there,
Yeah.
and you play it there and it comes through the system via optical and all that stuff, again, it sounded okay, but it never
not as
sounded
good.
as good as my CD player. But I was messing about with it, and I found that the amp itself supports Spotify directly. So, like, like Spotify Connect, where you can tell it to push it to different speakers. All I had to do was make a settings change on the amp, and it becomes a Spotify Connect receiver, which I didn't even know it did. Yeah, I'm only an IT guy. I mean, whatever. And
I don't know if people believe that, but anyway, it's true.
So I pushed some audio to the receiver using that Spotify Connect feature. And I hate to say, it basically sounds the same as my CD player. And I was rather disappointed.
Tim was hoping the CD player would still take it all. I mean, it makes sense. Now, I will say also, I have a question for Tim. Speaking of what you tend to listen to in Spotify, are you familiar with the genre of music called lo-fi?
Yeah,
L-O-F-I.
yeah, I've heard of that.
I think that like I've always been into listening to lo-fi when I'm working sometimes if it's something that I don't want to be distracted by lyrics
Hmm.
or like I just want some background noise, and that's probably because I have some if you know me, you know I probably have some ADHD processing things. Tim could tell you that's definitely true. And so but I don't feel like it was popular even like 5 years ago. And now when I was at the store, I literally saw them with vinyl of lo-fi. And I
Yeah.
swear that that uprising is because on TikTok, I'm not TikTok, I'm sorry, on Spotify, there's so many playlists that are just lo-fi.
Yeah, lo-fi for study, it often will
Hmm.
say. Yeah, I think of what it is. As we've said before, 30 something years ago, you go to a record shop and buy what you like, and maybe you'd swap a cassette with someone and say, hey, check this
Hmm.
out. This is a bit unusual. But, to get this stuff, you had to pay for it, and it was super hard.
Yeah.
And now everything you want ever is available at your fingertips instantly. And as I've said to you before, if you're into Israeli throat singing, or if you're into, I don't know, Ugandan metal or whatever, you can find that straight away.
Hmm. Lo-fi though, like I don't even know where I found it. I swear I found it on Spotify. Just one day I was like listening to something and I listened to like the Harry Potter one. I listened to just like the generic ones. A lot of people listen to it to go to sleep. And for those who don't know what we're talking about, it's kind of like a classical meets kind of technical, kind of techie sound. I don't know how to explain it better, but it's just background music, basically. Almost like elevator music in a way.
Yeah.
Oh, it was funny when you were talking about loving an elevator earlier. I was sitting there thinking, I wonder how many UK people were like, shouldn't they be saying lift? But anyway, I digress. Speaking of elevator music. All right, what's next?
Okay. So this is the cast album from the musical We Will Rock You, which is the Queen musical, which I've spoken about before, which I saw in
Hmm.
Vegas and I saw in London a number of times. And I have this on CD, so I added it into the Spotify.
The
This is a lot
Spotify.
of classic Queen songs rewritten for musical format, so it follows the narrative of the story. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to go with the opening track, which is Innuendo, which has Freddie Mercury's vocals on it, but it's the pit band from We Will Rock You that's playing it.
Have you watched, so you've watched We Will Rock You, but have you seen it live or anything,
Yeah,
Tim?
yeah, yeah. I saw it at the Dominion in London's West End, four times, five times, and then
Of course.
I saw the production in Vegas at the Paris, which wasn't quite as good.
So what is your overall thought on We Will Rock You? Because I know we've talked about this song, we've talked about but I've never really gotten how you obviously if you saw it 4 times you loved it, but
The story is probably ridiculous
it
as
kind
often
of
these things
is.
are, but the singers were great, the performance was great, the band was great, and it had lots of great Queen music in it.
I will
And
say, it does have a ridiculous plot, but don't most musicals?
yeah, absolutely. But no, it was great. The only thing that disappointed me is I never went when Brian May appeared. And Brian May would occasionally
Mm.
appear if he was in town and play the solo to Bohemian Rhapsody. And I never went on the day he did that.
So here's a question for you: which do you think? And of course, you have a very biased Queen opinion. Would you rather watch the We Will Rock You musical or watch the Bohemian Rhapsody movie?
If I had a choice between the two, I'd go and see the We Will Rock You musical again.
There you go, people. I've always wondered because I don't really have a bias either way. I just like both of them. I don't know if I have a pick. I like a pick one that I pick. But what's funny is the guy. What is the name of the guy who sings? The one who played Freddie Mercury in the Bohemian Rhapsody movie. What is his name?
Rami Malek.
Every time I see him now, I can't see him as anything else because he was in something I was watching the other day, and he was a background character, and that's all I could see. He
Yeah,
did a
because
really good job. So there you go. All right. Well, that really didn't tell me much about the song, but I was curious to know what Tim, because for those who don't know, Tim has a very, he kind of likes Queen. I mean, I don't know if we said that before or something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that will come up in my Spotify Wrapped. I'm looking forward to doing a Spotify Wrapped episode this year. And enjoy. I hope you get your Wraps this
I
year.
do too. And I've been looking and I've been like, okay, I've been making sure to use my Spotify every day when I'm working. So that way I know there are songs on there. So they should know. Now, I do wonder if, because I listen to like sleep stories, if I'm going to end up with like three sleep stories that I've listened to at night. But,
Possibly. I mean, that may happen.
yes, I do listen to sleep stories because my brain doesn't shut off when I want to go to bed. That's like the most adult thing ever. My brain won't shut off, everybody, okay? All right, what's next, Tim?
Okay, so this one again is from '89. This
Okay.
is from Madonna Saccone, and this is the album Like a Prayer. And I'm not going to go with the obvious title cutoff here. I'm going to go
Okay.
with the song Express Yourself.
I mean, so that one is one that I think when Lady Gaga came out was supposedly close. Like some song that Lady Gaga did, I think it was "Express Yourself." It was very similar, and I can't remember which one it was, but I think that was the song that got the hit. I could be wrong. But I mean, it's kind of classic puppy. Don't go for a sec. I mean, it's not that hard to like make a song that sounds like that.
Yeah, and there was a video that was made for it, and I think it was a little saucy at the time. I used to watch a TV show on Channel 4 called The Word, which was like late on a Friday night, and it was kind of edgy. And
Yeah.
like British TV is a little edgy anyway, and they were a little bit loose with the content that they would put on there. And
Okay.
they premiered the video for it, and because it couldn't be on Top of the Pops, it had to be on a later night show. And I think if you watch it now, it's probably incredibly tame by
It really is.
2024
very
standards.
80s.
But, in 1989, it was seen as really edgy.
Well, I mean, well, Like a Prayer was edgy too. You've got her and like they're referencing God and she's singing, and then the African American guy in the jail, and it was pretty edgy as well. But what's funny you say that is, I remember as a kid when Miley Cyrus was getting a lot of like hits because she was doing crazy stuff on TV and like, whatever.
Hmm.
I remember my mom being like, and maybe my mom is more logical because you know how like everybody wants to think of things in a different light than what they really were. So like when you listen to the lyrics and stuff to certain songs when you're younger, you're like, I can't believe this is on the radio. And I can't believe I was complaining about that song I just heard the other day when you listen to it at their core. My mom was like, she's not doing anything Cher Madonna didn't already do.
Sure.
Like she would just be like, I just don't see what the big deal is. And I always find it funny when people talk about Madonna, but she makes a really good point about Cher. Cher was pretty risky in some of the stuff she wore and did on TV as well.
Sure, 100%.
So anyway, and so I just think it's funny you mentioned that her being risky because looking back now, it kind of all looks ridiculous with what we have now.
Exactly.
But she was iconic. But that doesn't mean that she can hold her concerts for 7 hours and expect you to wait for her to come on stage.
Exactly, and have no musicians and sing to backing tracks. I mean, I love you, Madonna. I really do, but there's a limit to that.
Just if you don't want to sing live because you're older, just stop singing live. Go do
Yeah.
Madonna things. I don't know.
Very
Go get more
weird.
plastic surgery or something. But
Very weird.
it's all very weird. Her British. What do you feel about Madonna's British accent?
She lived in the UK because when she was who was she married to? Guy Ritchie. And then she lived in the UK for 5 minutes, and then she adopted this bizarre Madonna British accent.
But it just sounded like Madonna 2.0. Like it wasn't even that British to me. She just like held her vowels and consonants, kind of like British people do.
Well, do you know what's funny? Hannah lived with me in the UK for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when when we went back to visit when she was living with me, her sister-in-law says, "What's happened to you? You sound like Madonna."
It's funny. But so there's a kids show that's called Bluey. It's about a little blue dog, and the guy on it speaks, and it's a lot of kids' favorite like TV show when they're little nowadays. I've never watched a whole lot of it, but they speak in a British accent on the show. And there was people in America whose kids that was their favorite show, and they were growing up with little British accents because of the show. And it's so cute because I mean they're their formative years, and that's what they were hearing. So.
There we are. When really little kids should maybe listening to things in a foreign language and learning a language when their mind is able to absorb
Yeah.
that.
Because we all should have been in language immersion. Did you know Montgomery County's trying to do that, Tim, where we live?
I think it's fantastic. I mean,
They're trying to do it with Spanish,
oh yeah, 100%. You should teach kids another language when they're
like every other country does, but America.
yeah. I mean,
I don't know about England. Did they do a lot of it? But I know in a lot of other countries, they all speak multiple languages.
They teach you French and Spanish at school, but it's a token effort. It's not to the same degree where more or less every other country in the world, by the time you're a kid, you can speak English.
Yeah. The one that blew my mind, and I mean, it did blow my mind because I knew this, but was when I was in Greece, Tim, those tour bus drivers, I watched them talk to us in English. Then they would turn around and speak to this person in Spanish. Then they turn around and speak to this person in Italian. Then they go back to Greek. I mean, these people that were running these tour bus companies in Greece were speaking like 10 different languages fluently.
Yeah, it's a real skill. I mean,
it makes you jealous though, because I wish I could.
Yeah, I tried to learn Swedish and I got to a complete roadblock with it. I think I would have had to go to have like proper lessons, a tutor type thing, and really immerse myself in that world.
You have to immerse yourself in it, really, is what it comes down to. The only time I started really picking up on French is when I started taking French calls for my company at work. Mm-hmm. And basically, I was throwing feet to the fire and I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
There was no stilts. But I will say, what Montgomery County, which is the school near me and Tim, not that you guys care, they're trying to do a thing now where like you can opt in for your kids to like spend half their day in school in Spanish. Wonderful. Great idea.
I think that's great. There's such a large Spanish speaking population in the United States. Why would you not want to learn Spanish?
It's the largest growing population in the United States. Literally. That's what they say. So, and there were a lot of people going, of course, you got people who were against it, and we don't need to get into it, but a lot of people were very receptive. And if I had a young child at that age, I would be like, yes, absolutely. That's a skill they'll be able to use for the rest of their lives.
Exactly.
And me and Tim will move on from our language acquisition PSA.
Well, I tell you what, I'm going to close this episode out with this one. Now, this is an absolute rock and roll classic. Okay. This is from 1986. This is from the album Heartbeat. This is Don Johnson, and we're going with the title track Heartbeat. Now, did you know Don Johnson had a pop career?
No. I only know him in rock world, really.
Well, you know him as Crockett in Miami Vice.
Yeah, that's really all I know him from. I know him as an actor.
Yeah.
And Nash Bridges is the show I know him in from when I was a kid. Do you know what Nash Bridges is, Tim?
No, I'm Miami Vice. That's what I know him from.
It was like a show in the mid 90s that my mom watched, and I think they were cops. And they had shoulder pads like Miami Vice, but that's what he's in. Don Johnson was in Nash Bridges.
Okay, well, I only know Miami Vice, and I am rewatching Miami Vice. I seem to watch one episode about every 2 months, but I'm working my way through. I've got a particularly empty weekend. I have a gig on Friday this week, even though you'll get this weeks after the fact. And then I'm free all day Saturday, and I'm free all day Sunday. So my intention is to watch some quality, high-end episodes of Miami Vice.
I find it so funny that Tim's first thing when he thinks of Don Johnson is Miami Vice, and mine is Nash Bridges. And I know my mom, my dad, and my sister are going to laugh because that show was on a lot when we were a kid. He's got to be in like his 70s, though, right?
He is, and he looks fabulous. I follow him on Instagram.
Yeah,
and
he looks like he's in his 50s.
Good. He looks so good.
Is he? I wonder if he's got to be still acting. Probably not, but
I think he is. I think he's still out there getting it done. I think he was in something recently.
I know he was married to that Melanie, that female actress with blonde hair. That's all I remember. But good. But no, I didn't know he had a rock pop career. I was making a joke about him being a rock star, but I know him from Nash Bridges.
He has 2 albums. He has Heartbeat from 86 and he has Let It Roll from 89. And you'll be pleased to know that the song Heartbeat has 10 million listens on the Spotify.
Which is more than what you were saying. What were we talking about? The Doobie Brothers? No, the Jacksons.
Yeah.
Because you only said like 9 and something, 5 or something. That's crazy to think about. Ooh, here's a good question since you have the Spotify up. Your favorite David Hasselhoff, how many listens does his music have on the Spotify?
Okay, so we're going to bring up his classic magnum opus, Night Rocker, which is by far his finest work. Okay? The title track, Night Rocker, has a unbelievable 270,000 listens.
Wow.
And then the two tracks on here I really like. Our First Night Together has
Mhm.
96,000 listens. And the other track I really like is No Way to Be in Love, which has 54,000 listens. That, however, that his big hit, European hit, was called Looking for Freedom. And as you all know, that footage you see of David Hasselhoff as the Berlin Wall is being pulled down, there's
Mhm.
a million Germans there finally getting their freedom and they're pulling the wall down. And David Hasselhoff's on a cherry picker with a scarf that looks like a piano with a jacket with lights in it singing Looking for Freedom. So let's have a look for
Yes.
that. Looking for Freedom. Okay. Looking for Freedom has 17 million listens.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's very interesting. There you go, guys. Not that I had really anything to do, but I got curious after Tim started. I'm going to have to start paying attention to like my songs now and how many listens they're getting on the Spotify.
Yeah,
That's going to be the
I
thing.
think it doesn't show on the mobile app. You
Yeah.
have to have it either installed on your computer, and I think it comes up in the web version as well.
Yeah, I'd have it downloaded on my computer, and that's usually where I listen. So I'm gonna start. That's gonna be something I'm gonna start taking reference to because I always think about. There are a few songs that I absolutely love that I feel like nobody. You know what I'm like? I don't know if anybody really knows this but me. Now I'm gonna be curious. All right, what is well? That was the end of it, Tim. What would you like to leave the people with?
Just be kind to everyone that you meet.
And we're right at the end of the election season, so don't forget to vote.
Yeah, well, absolutely 100%.
All right, bye.
Bye bye.